Are you due for an overhead crane inspection, but you aren't really sure what factors into the cost of it? Well, you are in the right place, my friends, because that's exactly what we're talking about today. Welcome to Cranes 101. What's up guys, it's Devin here from MAZZELLA Companies, and today we're tackling overhead crane inspection. I'm going to tell you what factors into the cost, I'm going to tell you how often you need to get your crane inspected, and most importantly, and probably the reason you clicked on this video, is we're going to talk about how much this is going to cost you. If you're planning your budget for the next year, or if this is a surprise inspection, there are a couple things that you can do to really calculate the cost or really prepare for how much it's going to cost so it doesn't catch you by surprise. That is the entire purpose of this video. To help me explain this, I reached out to Ryan Willoughby, one of MAZZELLA Crane Service's field service technicians. With over 10 years of experience, he was more than willing to answer my questions about what factors into the cost and those other 2 points that I talked about. We start at the very top with what an overhead crane inspection entails.
An overhead crane inspection basically is the technician going out looking for safety factors, problems with the crane that could cause accidents or any mechanical failures, so that the crane will run efficiently and safely, so nobody will have any problems.
So the purpose of the inspection is to keep your team safe and keep your company compliant. But how many inspectors does it take to inspect your facility?
One inspector can probably handle, I'd say 6 B-class cranes a day. It might be a 10-hour day though. If you're dealing with a heavier duty class crane, it'll take a team of guys a whole shift to do. Some cranes are more complicated than others. Obviously, they're going to take a lot more time to inspect all the components, all the extra limit switches, all the motor controls. We do make cranes that are kit cranes that are real simple, running VFDs, a few IEC contactors, not a whole lot to look at on the control circuit side. There's a big difference between looking at a mill duty crane versus a kit crane, B-class crane. It's night and day. It could take 2 hours, it could take 12 hours with 3 guys.
When planning ahead for your inspection, it's really important to take into account how many cranes you have. What's the complexity of the way that they're built? Those different factors will depend on how long the technicians will be there, and that's a really common question that we get here. How long can you expect those technicians to be on your site?
It's going to be hours most likely, but the crane itself determines how long it's going to take. A small jib crane with just a chain hoist on it that doesn't have any motorized trolley function or anything, it's going to take a short amount of time compared to, say, a mill duty crane. It's a DC crane that's got 4 motors, DC series field motors and stuff like that. Capacity of the crane doesn't always affect how long it's going to take to do the crane. I'd say the duty class is a more important factor there. If you've got a 5-ton B-class crane, you may be able to whip through it pretty quickly compared to a 5-ton mill duty crane. It might take twice as long, 3 times as long to do that 5-ton.
Now Ryan and I spoke at length about some of the challenges our inspectors face from day to day. Some places require that you go through training before even walking into their facility. Others require that you wear specific safety gear. Neither of those are a problem, but that does add to the cost.
Other factors that affect how fast overhead crane inspection is going to get done or how efficiently it's going to get done, I guess, is the equipment needed to get up there, scissor lift, JLG, how accessible it is, production schedule, obviously, whether you can get on that crane or you have to give up the crane so they can do production. Site training, a lot of times site training is a whole day or half a day just to be aware of the hazards that are in the environment. You may have to have a ground guy, you might have to tape off a zone. These are all factors in how much something's going to cost as far as an inspection goes. Access to the crane is probably a bigger factor. Sometimes there's areas that are almost impossible to reach out to and you have to shut down machinery or something or have workers get out of the way and stop production so that you can access those areas. But you have to look at every area of the crane, although sometimes they're put in, they're not thinking about that in those machine settings.
Ryan also told me that something that people typically forget about is distance and travel time. If your facility is only 10 minutes away from the inspector, that's great. They're just going to be in, they're going to get out of there. But if you have a huge facility with several cranes and you need an entire team to come to your site, to stay there for several days and then to get back home, then you're talking travel, then you're talking lodging, then you're talking food. All those different things will come into effect when you're calculating your cost for the overhead crane inspection. So it's definitely something to note and think about if you do live and you know that you operate far away from the inspection facility. Obviously, you want to be as prepared as possible for your inspection. So we wanted to do what we could to help you out in addition to this video. If you follow the link above, it'll take you to our pre-inspection checklist. It's a free download, it doesn't cost you anything whatsoever, but the guide will help you get organized, help you better understand what to expect, and really just better prepare yourself for the inspection. A lot of the costs that we've talked about so far are things that you can account for. This checklist will help you get better organized so you can account for those things in your budget so they're not surprises. The CMAA, OSHA, ASME, and other governing bodies have specific criteria about how often you should get your cranes inspected. But what do the inspectors think about how often you should or should not do it?
You should inspect your crane every time you use it, at least a visual inspection and a function check to make sure you don't have something going on with your ropes or your shivs, to make sure your limit switches are functioning so an accident doesn't happen. You can do a monthly inspection yourself or have a qualified crane technician looking at it. Why use somebody outside other than using your own guys to do this inspection? I would say that they get complacent, get used to hearing the same noises day in, day out. It's kind of like if you're looking in the mirror every day and you're gaining 2 pounds every couple of weeks and you don't really pay any attention to notice that, but then you see somebody a month later and they say, wow, you look like you gained 20 pounds. It's the same scenario. Basically, we're going to walk in and we're going to notice that noise. That's abnormal. That brake shouldn't be that loud. Better take a closer look at that. Those types of scenarios.
All right, let's get down to brass tacks here. How much does an overhead crane inspection cost?
It's based almost entirely on how long it's going to take and what crane company you pick to do the inspection. They range from, I'd say, $60 an hour to $120 an hour, depending on the company. But you got to take into all those factors we just discussed, how long it takes to get there, how long it's going to take to do the inspection, how many guys need to be on the inspection, and what equipment needs to be rented just to do that job. That's going to make all the difference on that.
So we've noticed that every once in a while, if you're comparing overhead crane inspection quotes, you might find an outliner, somebody who's offering you way less money to do that inspection than the other quotes that you have. And we've come to find out that there's actually a specific reason that you might find one quote cheaper than the rest.
You might find if you're comparing quotes from different companies that one of the companies is extremely low compared to the other ones, and that oftentimes is just to get their foot in the door to get some service work generated out of those inspections. Generally speaking, the companies that are in the same range are probably there just to do the inspection to keep it safe.
I hope this video was able to help you better understand the factors that go into an overhead crane inspection, how often you need to inspect your cranes, and most importantly, how much your overhead crane inspection should cost. If you like this video, definitely click subscribe. There's an option right there at the bottom. At the end of the video, there's an option for you as well. That way you won't miss out on any of the other videos that we've got in development. If you're into overhead cranes or you have overhead cranes in your facility, definitely check out the Cranes 101 series that this is a part of, because we've already covered the different types and what they are, and we're gonna keep on building on from there. An overhead crane inspection is not just an investment in the safety of your employees. It's also an investment in your facility to make sure that you don't have lead time, that your cranes aren't down, that you can keep production going. When you weigh the cost of an OSHA fine or an injured employee against the cost of an inspection, it's a no-brainer. At Mazzella Companies, our field service technicians work hand in hand with our companies to make sure that they are safe and compliant. If you'd like to receive a quote or schedule a consultation to develop a crane inspection program, please reach out to one of our crane specialists. They'd be more than happy to help you out. For all of us at Mazzella Companies, my name is Devin McCarty. Thank you for watching.